Imagine a little girl in the 1850s. Her name is Mary Mildred Williams. If you passed her on the street, you might have mistaken her for any other white child. But Mary wasn't free, she was enslaved. Mary Mildred Williams was born into slavery in Virginia in 1847. Although she was legally enslaved, Mary had such fair skin that many would not have guessed she was black. This was not uncommon. Like many mixed-race children born during slavery, Mary was almost certainly the result of a white slave owner exploiting an enslaved black woman, a grim but widespread reality in the antebellum South. Enslaved black women were often subjected to repeated sexual violence by the white men who owned them. These assaults were not only tolerated, but normalized within the institution of slavery. The children born from these violent encounters were still considered property, enslaved by law, regardless of how white they looked. Mary's light complexion was not a privilege, but a marker of generational trauma and exploitation. Her father, Seth Botts, was a white man who had held Mary's mother, Elizabeth, as his slave. When he died, Elizabeth and her children were still considered his property and were sold to another slaveholder. Mary was just 8 years old at the time. In 1855, Mary's story took a dramatic turn. Senator Charles Sumner, a leading abolitionist from Massachusetts, saw an opportunity to use her case to challenge public opinion about slavery in the North. He introduced her to audiences as a living example of the absurdity and cruelty of the one-drop rule, a legal doctrine that classified anyone with even a single black ancestor as black and therefore eligible for enslavement. Mary became a symbol used to shock the conscience of white Northerners who might otherwise have felt disconnected from the horrors of slavery. She appeared before audiences and in widely circulated photographs as a seemingly white child who had been enslaved, forcing people to confront how arbitrary and brutal the institution truly was. Her image was featured in newspapers and abolitionist literature, making her a living indictment of slavery's inhumanity. Mary's story was not just about one child's journey from slavery to freedom. It exposed a deeply uncomfortable truth about how slavery operated, not just through forced labor, but through the violation of bodies and the destruction of families. Her life was a reminder that slavery's violence was not limited to the physical. It was social, psychological, and generational. Mary Mildred Williams became a symbol in the fight against slavery, but behind that symbol was a child shaped by pain, resilience, and a history that America is still struggling to reconcile. What makes Mary's story especially ironic and tragically relevant today is that her very existence was the product of America's long and brutal history of white men asserting power over enslaved black women. Generations of mixed-race children like Mary were born as a result. Her appearance was weaponized to provoke empathy from white audiences. Fast forward to today, and we see white supremacists promoting the Great Replacement theory. A fear-mongering narrative claiming that white people are being systematically replaced by people of color through immigration, interracial relationships, and demographic change. It is a theory rooted in paranoia and historical amnesia. Herein lies the deep and uncomfortable irony. For centuries, white men literally created racial mixing through the systemic rape and exploitation of black women during slavery. And now, some of their descendants express existential panic over the very racial diversity their forefathers initiated and institutionalized. Mary Mildred Williams' life is a testament to the complex, often deliberately forgotten history of America's racial intermingling, a history born not out of love or choice, but of violence, ownership, and domination. Her story exposes the hypocrisy of modern racial anxieties and reminds us that America's multiracial future is rooted deeply in its past, whether white supremacists want to admit it or not.